Disaster in Jersey, a chance to rebound in New York. Coming up on the Locked On Sabres podcast.
Your Locked On Sabres, your daily podcast on the Buffalo Sabres. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks, everyone, for making Locked On Sabres your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode brought to you by Sleeper. Download the Sleeper app. Use the promo code LOCKEDONNHL to get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. We enter a new week of Sabres hockey, and the Sabres are 3 points out of a playoff spot that is currently occupied by the Toronto Maple Leafs, 5 points behind the next closest team, the Tampa Bay Lightning, 9-10-2 on the season, 9 wins, 12 losses, the most recent of which a blowout at the hands of the New Jersey Devils, 7-2 at Prudential Center in Newark, New Jersey. We'll recap that game for a moment, and then we'll quickly turn the page to what hopefully will be a better week. Buffalo sports fans need it in a bad way right now. The Bills are depressing. The Sabres are depressing. It's not good days. It's not positive days, at least at the moment. The Sabres are in the middle of a 4-game road trip, and they will have the next of which, of course, tonight, Monday night, against the New York Rangers, 7 o'clock puck drop from MSG, and we will preview that game coming up in a little bit. The lineup, so confusing. Trying to make lineup cards for our social media team, or filling them in on what players to put on the graphic. It's rocket science. I can't figure it out what Don Granato is doing. So there's a lot to break down on that front even coming up. But 7-2. So I was actually at an engagement party on Saturday night, and we got there around, like 6 o'clock. So there's college football on when we get there, and college football was pretty cool. Like, you had Alabama Auburn with an insane ending, a 4th and 31 from the 4th and goal from the 31. I have a friend who's an Oklahoma State fan, and that game went to overtime against BYU, and there was a million different great college football games in the final regular season week. So it gets to be 7 o'clock, and it's like, all right, let's flip over to the Sabre game. But we were watching the end of, I think it was the Iron Bowl, the Alabama-Auburn game. We were watching the end of it. And it's a big group of people, so you can't just be like, I get the game on, like yelling at everybody. Like, you let the group do what they want. So it gets to be like 7:05, 7:06, and this game is just about to end. And just as we're about to flip on the Sabre game, I see on my phone, goal. Already, Devils. And this is a trend. The Sabres have been doing this all year, letting up early goals. 91 seconds into this one, and Alex Holtz scores his 6th of the year to make it 1-0 Devils. And it's like, 1-0 Devils. Then we have the game on where, we're talking. So we got the game on in the background. We're watching it a little bit where everyone's catching up. And then, boom, halfway through the first period, 2-0 Devils. Okay, this is not good. Everyone's kind of like, oh, what is this team, man? Like, what is this team? Why are they so bad? And then 4 minutes later, boom, 3-0. Nico Hischier. Tyler Toffoli, of course, the second. Hischier with the third. 3-0. Game over. How many games like that have the Sabres had this year where it felt like in the first period, this game's over already? I mean, a lot of them. The Flyer game at home a couple weeks ago comes to mind. Then a minute 30 to go in the first. Boom, Andre Palat. It's 4-0 after the first period. And the party I was at, they turned on college football, and it never went back on. I watched back some of the second and the third, some of. I couldn't stand to watch the whole thing, live with myself to watch, the Sabres get smoked in the final 2 periods when usually you can't really read too much into it anyway. Couldn't bring myself to watch the whole thing. After the second and third, I watched bits and pieces, the condensed version that the NHL media site sends out. But it's like 4-0, game never went back on. Never went back on. This party had college football on the rest of the night. You had a Jeff Skinner goal mixed in there. You had a Kyle Okposo goal mixed in there. But the game was super depressing and deflating. And I imagine that a lot of you and a lot of Sabre fans turned that game off after 20 minutes and did something else with their Saturday night, and I wouldn't have blamed them at all. It's a disgrace. It's an embarrassment, and it's kind of pathetic that the Sabres are continually having games like this where everyone wants to buy in. Fans want to buy in to this team. They're begging to, especially, most Buffalo sports fans are both Bills and Sabres. And especially with how depressed you could be right now about the Bills and their state, 6-6, and they have all these expectations. You'd want nothing more than the hockey team to kind of distract you or to take over, right? Take over all of your fan bandwidth. And the Sabres have just not done that. They have not run away with that. They have not captured anybody's imaginations. They look like a boring hockey team, and they look like a pretty damn average hockey team, below average hockey team even at that. 9 wins, 12 losses on the season. They're getting smoked by a Devils team that's been struggling. The Devils, I like them a lot on paper, and I do think they've been suffering from some injuries. When Jack Hughes went out, they really struggled to win games there. But the Devils, I do think, are a good team, but they were 8-9-1 going into that game. They had a losing record going into that hockey game. It's not an unbeatable, they're not playing Boston here. It's the Devils. Come on, you could do that. You're supposed to be taking steps to be as good as them. They took a step 30 points forward last year. Why can't you do it? And more we see the Sabres just might not be as dangerous as a team as they were last year. Every game that passes, every game where that seems to be more and more solidified. Some of the stats quickly in this game. The most embarrassing thing, in fact, the only stat I really feel like I even need to share, I don't even want to go, look, don't even going to tell you all the advanced stats. 38 shots for the Devils, 12 for the Sabres. 12 shots on goal. What an embarrassment. 12 shots on goal. I mean, show up, would you? I mean, Eric Comrie, I didn't think played well. I wouldn't have been against seeing him on waivers in the last couple of days. That did not happen. The team just didn't show up, and that's been happening far too often. So I love the head coach. I think he's done an excellent job up to this point, but he better get things going here. The team better get things going. Really, you've heard over the months in the recent, years that if they ever did anything with that coach, the team would revolt. That they are behind Don Granato 1,000%, and they would revolt if they ever tried to fire Don Granato. But you know what? Hey, if that team, if those players don't want that to be a conversation, and I don't think it's a conversation yet, but if they don't want it to be a conversation, better get their act together. Because the longer they play like this, the more likely you're going to hear fans start to ask the question, and idiots like me ask the question, all right, should we start talking about the coach? I don't think I'm not there yet. I'm not even close to being there yet, but you're on Twitter enough to see that once in a while it's starting to come up. So 38-12 were the shots on goal in favor of New Jersey. Unbelievable. They are now 0-2 against the Devils this year. The Devils won the first game of the season between the two on October 27th, and these two teams will not meet again until March 29th. So way later in the season before the Sabres will play the Devils again. On the stat sheet, again, good to see Jeff Skinner get his 10th of the year, I guess, boost some of the numbers. Okposo got his second. He scored in back-to-back games. I did not have a same-game parlay for this, but, I'm at a heater with the picking the goal scorer, but not necessarily with the rest of it. I would have been way off on this one. So thankfully I did not have that for you. I will have a same game parlay for today's game. I'm going to go with a little bit more of a likely parlay. I want to get a win on the board here. So that's coming way later in the show. Sabres versus Rangers. The lineup. We'll try to piece it together and what to expect for this Sabre Ranger game coming up in the Locked On Sabres podcast. We are brought to you by Collective. If you run a solo small business, you're an army of one, but you need a CPA, bookkeeper, separate payroll solution, and more. Let Collective take care of the paperwork while you take care of business. Collective is the #1 financial solution for freelancers, contractors, and self-employed entrepreneurs that lets you focus on your passion, not your paperwork. Let Collective handle all of the paperwork you dread, like corporate formation and compliance, taxes, bookkeeping, accounting, and even payroll. And the best part, it's at a fraction of the cost of a CPA. Collective knows that if your business of one makes over $80,000 a year, you will find the most value from their services. Join the thousands of solopreneurs that have saved an average of $10,000 per year on taxes with their structure. Right now, Collective is offering 1 month completely free, no onboarding fee when you go to collective.com/LockedOnNHL and tell them Locked On NHL sent you. That's a $550 value for free when you go to collective.com/LockedOnNHL and tell them Locked On sent you. That's collective.com/LockedOnNHL. Tell them Locked On NHL sent you. Sabres are 9-10-2 on the season. Joe DiBiase back here in the Locked On Sabres podcast. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. Reminder, Locked On's launched its first ever national 24/7 streaming channel. The first ever, not just their first ever, on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today, here for your 24/7, covering the top stories in sports of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. Sabres and Rangers at Madison Square Garden, 7 o'clock on Monday night. And the Sabres got to get rolling here. They have got to get rolling. They have only won two of their last 7 games. They have only picked up 5 points of a possible 14 dating back to the last to November 11th. Just kind of picking a random date there, I know, but 2 of their last 7. Not good enough, and it is what has them falling apart here, starting to lose ground in the playoff race. 3 points behind Toronto, and I'm not one that thinks Toronto is going to miss the playoffs. 3 points behind Philadelphia, 5 points behind Tampa Bay. Those are the teams that they are currently chasing in the standings. They actually are behind everybody but Montreal, New Jersey, Ottawa, and Columbus. And by points percentage, how about this? By points percentage, the only team below the Sabres in the Eastern Conference this year is Columbus. That's it. Second last. Tied with Montreal. That is a joke through the first month and a half of the season. Hoping they can get back on track against the Rangers. What are we going to see from the Sabres against the Rangers? Well, when it starts with a confusing lineup, you already kind of start off a little bit frustrating, I guess. But the lineup is what it is. Although, we don't really know what it is because Don Granato informed us on Monday morning that Matthias Samuelsson, who was skating on the ice, was injured in the first period on Saturday against Jersey, is dealing with an injury, took a stick up high, so it's just basically pain management. But Granato said that Samuelsson would be a game-time decision, and that Henri Jokiharju, who was scratched on Saturday, will re-enter the lineup. Okay, so if Samuelsson plays, and Jokiharju is definitely going to play, then who comes out? Does a forward come out? Does a defenseman come out? Again, with these lineup graphics that Locked On puts together for us, I don't even know what to tell them. Like, can we add another box? No. Okay, can we put a slash? I don't know if it's going to be a forward. I don't know if it's going to be a defenseman. The candidates that I would consider to miss this game, I would think either one of the kids just called up from Rochester, Yuri Kulik and Isaac Rosen, in part because Roseanne, both, I'm never going to get that right. I mean, maybe we'll get used to it here quickly, but both were taken off the power play at practice. So, maybe one is going to sit. Ryan Johnson, I guess, could sit. Clifton or Eric Johnson could sit. Of course, Samuelsson could just not end up playing. Olofsson, I don't think is going to sit. Olofsson was up with the number 1 power play unit at practice, which to me says that he's going to be playing tonight for sure. The rest of the lines, though, Middlestat, Skinner, and Tuck staying together. Cousins, Peterka, and Benson, that's your top 6. Peyton Krebs, Yuri Kulik, and Kyle Okposo. Tyson Jost, Isaac Rosen, and Victor Olofsson are the forward lines. But again, any one of those forwards could come out. Not any, but especially in the bottom 6, somebody could. We're going to get Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen in goal for this game. Levi or Comrie will be the backup. Luukkonen has easily been the Sabres' best goaltender all year. I said on Saturday to our text line, who, by the way, should have reminded you, go to joinsubtext.com/lockedonsabres. Join our big sorties group chat. We are going to be talking tonight. If you want to air your grievances, vent a little bit when the Sabres are inevitably down 4-0 to the Rangers on Monday night, and you want to yell about it, you want to get your thoughts heard on the podcast, be sure to do that. Again, join subtext.com/lockedonsabres if you want to reply to that. Some reaction, by the way, if you want a little scoop on what we're talking about in that group chat. Starting to lose faith in Granato. This is from one listener. He said, I just want to get the exact one right here. Starting to lose faith in Granato. There have been a lot of talk about McDermott hitting his ceiling as a coach after the Denver debacle. Maybe it's time to start having that conversation about Donnie Meatballs. The guy's a development coach, and maybe this is his first full-time job for a reason. He goes on further, but again, that Granato question is starting to get asked. So again, if you want to get in on that conversation, we send out breaking text news as well. If there's ever a Sabres trade or signing, call up, of course, you get it right away. We'll update you from practice with line combinations or lineup notes from the morning of, right from the practice ice. So again, check out our text line. We've had a lot of fun with it so far. Join subtext.com/lockedonsabres. Luukkonen in goal, though. I've eaten crow on him so far. I'm glad to say I'm wrong on Luukkonen. I told you before the season I'd be okay waiving him, and good thing that didn't happen because they would be nowhere in goal right now. Devin Levi has done nothing to earn that number one job, and Eric Comrie has had two pretty bad performances, in my opinion, coming off of an injury. They need Luukkonen, and I said on Saturday to our text group, that's why I started off on the text line, that they should probably play Luukkonen until he pukes. Keep playing them because the season's starting to get away from them, and they got to have their best goaltender in there. So good to see that he'll be playing against the Rangers. This Rangers team, remember, what the Sabres had trouble with in their opener was the Rangers scored first, and it happened early. Don't let the Rangers get up early in this game because they are, among all teams in the league, they are one of the best at playing the trap and smothering you. Not letting you get any shots through. They block shooting lanes. They block neutral zone lanes. They just make everything difficult on you. The Sabres have already struggled this year, becoming a dangerous offensive team. If game script goes in favor of the Rangers in this game, the Sabres could score very few goals in this game. One or two very easily if the Rangers get up early. So big key to the game. Don't let the Rangers get up early in this one. Sabres and Rangers tonight on the Locked On Sabres podcast. When we come back, a quick look at the Rangers lineup, what's going on with them, and I've got my same game parlay that I feel better about today because I went for some more likely bets to try to get this thing home. That's coming up in the Locked On Sabres podcast. We are brought to you by Sleeper. Another way you can enjoy this game tonight, go to Sleeper, throw a bunch of over-unders for different players in this game. The official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL network is Sleeper. Sleeper is our number one choice for daily fantasy sports, and especially daily fantasy hockey, because with Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash in daily fantasy hockey contests. All you have to do, pick whether players like J.J. Peterka and Casey Middlestad and Owen Power or whoever will record more or less than their sleeper projections for things like goals, shots, assists, saves, plus minus, and more in a given game. To win a 100 times bet on Sleeper, you need to correctly predict the outcome of 8 player stats. You can win 100 times, though, your money playing daily fantasy hockey on Sleeper. So start paying attention and nail your picks. Use promo code LOCKEDONNHL. You'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's code LOCKEDONNHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details and locational availability. Stevie Joe DiBiase back here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. What's going on with the New York Rangers? Tonight's opponent for the Sabres, well, they are incredible. They are one of the best teams in hockey. They are tied with the Boston Bruins for the most points, both in the NHL and in the Eastern Conference, but they've played one fewer game. So by points percentage, they have the highest points percentage in the league. They are 31 points in 19 games. That is 81.6% of their possible points they could have. The Sabres, for comparison, are at 47% points percentage. The Rangers also have the third best goal differential in the league this year at a plus 21. They have allowed the fewest goals in hockey, 45. Nobody has allowed less. 8 of their last 10. They're on a 3-game win streak. This is as big of a challenge as it gets. They, by the way, have done a little bit of that this year without their star goaltender Igor Shesterkin playing. Jonathan Quick, who is shot at this point, has had to play a little bit. He's played fine in 8 games, and the system has helped that a lot as well. Unluckily for the Sabres, Shesterkin's back healthy. He will play in this game against the Sabres. On the stat sheet for New York this year, Artemi Panarin, right back to being a superstar, 29 points in 19 games played. Chris Kreider, 13 goals, leads the way for them, 20 points in 19 games for him. Trocheck, Zibanejad, Eric Gustafsson on the blue line, 14 points, all for them. Alexei Lafreniere starting to have a bit of a bounce back year with 8 goals in 19 games. So the Rangers are getting secondary scoring this year. They have a great blue line, and they do not allow tough chances at all. Now, to be fair, they are missing Adam Fox. So I think their best skater is Adam Fox, Norris Trophy winner, one of the best defensemen in hockey. He will not play in this game against the Sabres, so they get a little bit of a break there. Philip Cheadle up front, also not going to play in this game. So a couple of important injuries for sure, which maybe that offsets Tage Thompson not playing in this game. So what does it all mean? It means the Rangers are a massive, massive favorite in this game. Not the biggest favorite on the night, but that's because Boston plays Columbus. You got the best team in the East playing the worst team in the East. One of the best teams in the East. So anyways, looking at some of the betting odds in this game, the Rangers are minus 225 on the money line. Again, a crazy big favorite at home against the Sabres. The Sabres are plus 184. Again, for you non-bettors, that would mean if you bet 100 on the Sabres to win, you would win 184. For comparison, the Rangers are minus 225. You'd have to bet 225 to win 100 on the Rangers. The over-under in this game, 6.5, but it is plus money on the over, plus 110, minus 134, which means this game is favored to go under 6.5 goals. That leads me to my 3-leg parlay, same game parlay. Let's get this. I'm on a heater predicting the goal scorer, but I've missed on the other stuff. So I'm going to go a little bit more likely in this game. I had some good ones last week too. I had Zach Benson to score. When he scored, I had Kyle Okposo to score against Pittsburgh, and that happened. In this game, I'm going to go even a little more likely than those two. JJ Peterka, plus 330. I've been loving the Peterka anytime bet this year. I've hit it a couple of times. Peterka is getting opportunities both on the power play. He's getting opportunities on the top 6. He's playing a ton of minutes. He played over 20 minutes against Pittsburgh. The Devil game, I don't even want to kind of read into it because that was a blowout game. You can't really get a sense of how much he wanted to play, guys. But against Pittsburgh, over 20 minutes for Peterka. So he's starting to play a lot more. He's scoring on his opportunities. He's playing with Dylan Cousins and Zach Benson. He's got the right teammates for it. I like Benson at plus 330. Again, I like Skinner more, Tuck more even. Nah, maybe not Tuck, but those guys are at plus 180. Cousins is at plus 280. So Peterka being a little bit further down the list than those guys, I like at plus 330. I'm going to go that as my first leg. Second leg, under 6.5 goals in this one. Both teams are playing their best goaltender. The Rangers love to play a very defensive style. I just mentioned they've allowed the least goals in hockey, under 6.5 goals, in part because of who the goalies are. And then I'm going to go Rangers minus 1.5. That's a little bit plus money as well. That's the Rangers to win by 2. You have your empty net opportunities there as well. Won't be rooting for that to happen, but I think the Rangers are a dominant team, and they are the exact type of team that the Sabres have trouble with. The Sabres do not react well when teams start playing the trap on them, and nobody plays it better than the Rangers. I don't like the matchup for Buffalo. I think the Rangers win this game by more than a goal. So all of that get you to plus 378.5, plus 3,785, which in a $10 bet would be $378. On a $100 bet would be $3,700, and so on and so forth. So hopefully I'm wrong though, because that would mean that the Sabres win the game or lose by 1, I guess. That would be the worst. If they lose by 1, the Sabres don't win, and I lose the bet. That's the worst outcome. No, for sure. All right. Hopefully, though, it goes a little bit better for the Sabres in this one. I'll be surprised if it happens because this is a great team they play. But here's to hoping that it does indeed happen. Thanks, everybody, for listening to today's episode of the Locked On Sabres podcast. A reminder, check us out on our text line. You get news alerts, breaking news alerts, practice updates, my takes on things that happen throughout the day, and then we go back and forth reacting to the game as it happens. Our big ol' sorties group chat. Join subtext.com/LockedOnSabres. Be sure to join us there. Check us out on our YouTube channel as well. Locked On Sabres there. Like and subscribe on YouTube. Thanks for making us your first listen every day here on the Locked On Sabres podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'll talk to you next time.